Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Continue reading in Chaitanya Shikshamrta by Bhaktivinode Thakur. Bhaktivinode Thakur's writings are so deep. He's very detailed, and he goes into great depth of explanation. He's very precise, and he's very devotional. But intense. His writings are very intense. So, this is chapter 3, and it's entitled Vaidhi Bhakti. And part 1, general characteristics of Vaidhi Bhakti. Those principles of religion which arise from the rules of Scripture are divided into two types, mundane and spiritual. The rules for Artha Dharma and Kama are mundane Dharma. Those rules are for well-being of body, mind, society, morality, and afterlife on Svargaloka, which is temporary. After enjoying happiness in Svargaloka, one must return to the earth planet. The Varnashram system described previously is also mundane. Dharma, Artha, and Kama come in cyclic progression, and the soul never gets released from following those rules. The goal of those rules is material acquisition, and thus they're called mundane or material. Whatever results are obtained by doing those activities are material. And those material results lead to more action, which lead to more material results. The result after which is no more chain of action is called spiritual or aphavarga. Material religion may be either polytheistic or monotheistic. An example will illustrate the chain of action and result. Marriage is an action. Its goal is children. Who should perform action in the form of offering rites when the parents die? When this goal is achieved and turns to action of offering the pindas, the goal is to satisfy the pitras. Satisfaction of the pitras leads to satisfaction of the children. The children then perform more actions, which give more results, which leads to more actions. The results of these actions is temporary. Therefore, the happiness of begetting children, and even the peace arising from liberation and the bliss of Brahman, are all within the chain of material action and material result. When the bliss of Brahman matures to bliss of service to the Supreme Lord, the material chain ends, and the final result is achieved in the form of spiritual life. Thus, aphavarga has two meanings, liberation and devotion. When a person attains liberation from material bondage, he attains the eternal dharma of bhakti, devotion. As long as dharma aims at material goals, it's called material dharma or material religion. It's also called morality or smarta dharma. When dharma aims at spiritual goals, it's called spiritual dharma or spiritual religion. When it follows the rules of Scripture, it's called sadhana bhakti. The so-called worship of the Lord observed in smarta dharma, sandhya rites, deity worship, sacrifice, and prayers, is not on a spiritual level, because all those daily and occasional actions of worship simply result in nourishing the worshipper's material tendency or improving the social environment. Such worship can be classified as karma because the end result is material. For those following material dharma, worship of the Lord is only one rule amongst many. It is it is not the eternal loyalty to the Lord which is found in real spiritual dharma. Those actions which aim at the well-being of body, mind, and society are called naitika, or moralistic. Though actually not accepting the Lord as real, the followers of material dharma accept worship of the Lord on the naitika level as a means of purification. Even Compte, an avowed atheist, accepted worship of the Lord as means of purification of mind. On the path of mundane faith, all worship of the Lord is of this type. The arrangements for meditating on forms of the Lord found in yoga scriptures is also of this type. But the prescriptions for devotional service, according to rules, Vaidhi Bhakti, found in the devotional literatures, is purely spiritual religion, or apavarga dharma. On deeply analyzing the matter, it will be found that there is great conceptual difference between rules of material dharma, smarta or natika, with motivated worship, and the rules of spiritual dharma, which advocate constant dedication to the Lord. The difference is not a difference in activity or ritual, but rather a difference in consciousness. Faithless moralists and smartas take ethical principles as the highest goal, limit religious life to fulfillment of dharma, artha, and kama, whereas the devotees of Vaidhi Bhakti increase the limits of dharma, artha, and kama by linking them to spiritual, totally non-material goals. Thus, the mundane, moralist dharma is included within the spiritual dharma. When natika dharma develops and becomes complete, it becomes spiritual dharma. With the addition of dedication to the Lord to the mundane dharma, it blossoms and becomes spiritual dharma. Though a person situated in the world may accept spiritual dharma, he does not give up the rules of mundane dharma, for the rules of varnashram still assist him in supporting his body, mind, and social environment. Being comfortable as a result of proper body, mind, and surroundings, he's able to attain the eternal bliss of worshiping the Lord. The mundane dharma is called karma kanda, and the spiritual dharma is called sadhana bhakti. It is apparent that the secondary rules of karma are one division of scripture, and the principal rules of bhakti are another division. There are two processes in attaining devotion: the gradual process and the sudden process. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Lord described to Sri Rupa Goswami the gradual path. The unlimited living entities can be divided into two divisions: those that can move and those that cannot move. Among living entities that can move, there are birds, aquatics, and animals. Although the living entities known as human beings are very small in quantity, that division may be still further subdivided, for there are many uncultured human beings like lechas, pulindas, bodhas, and sabaras. Among human beings, those who are followers of Vedic principles are considered civilized. Among these, almost half simply give lip service while committing all kinds of sinful activities against these principles. Such people do not care for the regulative principles. Among the followers of Vedic knowledge, most are following the process of fruitive activity and distinguishing between good and bad work. Out of many such sincere fruitive actors, there may be one who is actually wise. Out of many millions of such wise men, one may actually become liberated, and out of many millions of such liberated persons, a pure devotee of Lord Krishna is very difficult to find. Because a devotee of Lord Krishna is desireless, he's peaceful. Fruitive workers desire material enjoyment. Jnanis desire liberation. Yogi desire material opulence. Therefore, they're all lusty and cannot be peaceful. It's from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The trees and other motionless entities have covered consciousness. Reptiles, aquatics, and other animals have restricted consciousness. The primitive people and civilized people with arts and science, but no Varnashram Dharma, are devoid of moral principles. Buddhists and other atheist groups have only moral culture. Those who accept the Vedas but do not practice strictly have morals with a material conception of God. And those who actually practice Dharma have belief in God conditioned by moral culture. Among those, some people discover the real truth, and among those, a few obtain liberation from material consciousness. Among those, a few attain devotion to the Lord. Those who accept material results, liberation, and powers of yoga attain no real peace. Only the devotee is peaceful. Thus, the human being may progress from uncivilized to ethical to theistic dharma. Not being distracted by those results, material enjoyment, liberation, and powers of yoga, a person then progresses to devotional life. This is the process of gradual progress for the soul. This is the prescription of all scriptures and the path which will give certain results. Mahaprabhu described to Sanatana Goswami as follows: there are unlimited conditioned souls who are bereft of Lord Krishna's service. Not knowing how to cross the ocean of nescience, they're scattered by waves, time, and tide. However, some are fortunate to contact devotees, and by this contact they're delivered from the ocean of nescience, just as a log floating down a river accidentally washes upon the bank. The sudden process is caused by the mercy of Krishna, the mercy of a devotee, and destruction of obstacles created to previous practice. Where the sudden process operates, it supersedes the gradual process. Krishna, creator of all rules, is the cause of this. It cannot be accommodated by reasoning power. The logical contradiction between rule and mercy, which surpasses human intellect, can be reconciled within the Lord, within whom all opposites coexist harmoniously. Thus, by the mercy of Narada, the lawless hunter attained devotional life without having to take up a civilized life and basic moral principles. By the mercy of Ram, Sabari, a tribal, attained a high state of devotion. Such persons do not have to practice the many intervening stages of life. It should be understood that when a person attains devotional life, all the good qualities of moral and civilized life automatically appear as the ornaments of his life. But as this sudden process is rare and unpredictable, one should not rely upon it, but rather take shelter of the gradual process. If the sudden process happens to appear, all the better. On the path of gradual development, the person must take care to elevate himself to a higher level, no matter on which level he is situated. By good fortune, it is the nature of the soul that gradually it elevates itself. But there are obstacles such that the soul may fail to reach the goal. Those who desire to reach a higher standard must always be conscious of that fact. In progressing from one level of life to another, two things should be considered. A person should be firmly fixed in his present position in order to take a firm step forward. Then, in order to advance to a higher level, when one foot gives up the previous place, that foot must fix itself firmly in the higher place before the other foot can raise itself to the same level. Simultaneously, the person must give up the lower level and establish himself firmly in the higher level. If he moves too quickly, he will fail. If he moves too slowly, the results will also come slowly. By progressing from tribal life, civilized life, moral life with materially conceived God, and moral life with acceptance of God, to devotional life and practice, sadhana bhakti, step by step, the living entity can achieve the highest end, prem. If he hurries too quickly to progress to one step, he will fall to the lower step, if he delays too long on one step, become lazy, block his own progress. Understanding that both excessively quick or slow movement is an obstacle, a person should elevate himself gradually by fixing himself firmly on one level and then giving it up when he has attained firmness in the next higher level. Some people lament that they have not attained devotion to Krishna, but at the same time, they do not make any real attempt to raise themselves to the level of Krishna Bhakti. They remain bound to one of the levels without due cause, and do not make any attempt to progress, niyamagraha. If a person stops at one level, how can he expect to progress to the top? Many devotees on the level of Vaidhi Bhakti make no attempt to progress to Bhava Bhakti and lament that they have not attained Bhava. Many people remain attached to the rules of Varnashram and are indifferent to Bhava and Prem. This is an obstacle to their own advancement. Those who are fortunate to receive the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, however, can progress very quickly. In a short lifespan, a person can easily progress from Varnashram to the highest level of Prem. Those who have taken shelter of the rules of gradual development do not have to wait for another birth to elevate themselves. However, those who act like dead fish and simply float on the currents of fate in the ocean of material existence, advancing and retreating with the ebb and flow of the tide, can hardly attain the desired goal. The general characteristic of either gradual or sudden devotion is found in Vaidhi Bhakti. It is favorable cultivation of Krishna with no desire other than the desire to nourish devotion itself. And it is uncontaminated by jnana or karma. Cultivation of Krishna is the essential part of bhakti. Cultivation of God can be found in karma marg, but it is a secondary part of morality. It is not devotion because moral conduct is the master and worship of God is but a servant of morality. On the path of jnana, there is cultivation of pure knowledge of Brahman. There, knowledge is the master, and worship of God is the servant. That is also not bhakti. In bhakti, God is the only object of cultivation. This cultivation of the Lord must always be in a favorable mood. Though cultivation or absorption can also be unfavorable, that is not bhakti. One can cultivate bhakti favorably by making one's life favorable to bhakti. While existing in the material body, performing actions related to the bodily needs, karma, and making distinctions of material and non-material, jnana, are unavoidable. But where that karma and jnana cover the cultivation of bhakti, bhakti no longer exists. Where dedication to the Lord dominates karma and jnana, bhakti may be said to exist. Those following Vaidhi Bhakti should think of dedication to the Lord as their principal work in life. It is a cultivation performed not from fear or hatred, but with affection and love. This is the meaning of favorable. Though it is necessary to maintain the body by following rules of Varnashram, the devotee never allows those rules to overpower his devotion of the Lord. Those rules always remain as followers of the cultivation of the Lord. Whatever knowledge is necessary for realizing the soul beyond the material realm of experience, it always remains as the servant of devotional cultivation and never supersedes the position of devotion. All actions and all knowledge are for the advancement of bhakti alone. This is how the devotee of Vaidhi Bhakti lives his life. Until his pious results are used up. The following are verses from the scriptures, mostly Srimad Bhagavatam. Until his pious results are used up, the performer of sacrifice enjoys life in the heavenly planets. When the pious results are exhausted, however, he falls down from the pleasure gardens, being moved against his desire by the force of eternal time. One who desires to be absorbed in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti effulgence should worship the master of the Vedas. One who desires powerful sex should worship the heavenly King Indra. One who desires good progeny should worship the great progenitors called Prajapatis. One who desires good fortune should worship Durga Devi, superintendent of the material world. One desiring to be very powerful should worship fire. One who aspires after money should worship the Vasus. One should worship Rudra incarnations of Lord Shiva if he wants to be a great hero. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, Personality of Godhead. All the different kinds of worshippers of multi-demigods can attain the highest perfectional benediction, which is spontaneous attraction unflinchingly fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead only by the association of the pure devotee of the Lord. In such a degraded body, he unfortunately continues to perform inauspicious activities that greatly increase his future unhappiness, and therefore he again accepts a similar material body. What possible happiness can there be for one who engages in activities inevitably terminating in death? In all the planetary systems, from the heavenly to the hellish, and all the great demigods who live for 1,000 yuga cycles, there is fear of me in my form of time. Even Brahma, who possesses the supreme lifespan of 311 quadrillion, 40 trillion years, is also afraid of me. O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste division and orders of life is to please the Personality of Godhead. In every yuga, many living entities entangled in the modes of passion and ignorance gained the association of my devotees. Thus, such living entities as the Daityas, Rakshasas, birds, beasts, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Nagas, Siddhas, Charanas, Guyakas, Vidyadhars, as well as such low-class human beings as the Vaishyas, Sudras, women, and others, were able to achieve my supreme abode. Vritrashura, Prahlad Maharaj, and others like them also achieved my abode by association with my devotees. As in Vrindavan and the wives of the Brahmins, as did personalities such as Vishvaparva, Bali Maharaj, Banashura, Maya, Vibhishan, Sugriva, Hanuman, Jambavan, Gajendra, Jatayu, Tuladar, Dharmavyadha, Kubja, the gopis in Vrindavan, and the wives of the Brahmins who were performing sacrifice. These persons I have mentioned did not undergo serious studies of Vedic literature, nor did they worship great saintly persons, nor did they execute severe vows or austerities. Simply by associating with me and my devotees, they achieved me. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, and Sudras, can attain the supreme destination. How much more this is so of the righteous Brahmins, devotees, and saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary, miserable world, engage in loving service to me. When first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires. Knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy and fruit of action, devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably, as Krishna desires. The senses are symbolic representations of the demigods, and their natural inclination is to work under the direction of the Vedic injunctions. As the senses are representative of the Lord, of the demigods, so the mind is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mind's natural duty is to serve. When that service spirit is engaged in devotional service to the Personality of Godhead without any motive, that's far better than salvation. The manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of a Supreme Personality of Godhead who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows toward the Supreme Lord. And that is Chapter 3, Part 1, the general characteristics of Vaidhi Bhakti.